hold it back. It's built to stand the test. For every trade and every hand, it proves it's still best. For merchants and for dreamers too, it levels every field. A global tool, it's here to rule, a power that won't yield. And I'm proud to use BCH today, where freedom lights the way. Fast, secure, and built to last, the strongest every day. From the cities to the farmlands, to the mountains capped with snow, Bitcoin Cash connects the world and helps our future grow. It's not just for the wealthy, it's for the ones in need. It's power for the powerless, to help them to succeed. And I'm proud to use BCH today, where freedom lights the way. Fast, secure, and built to last, the strongest every day. From the cities to the farmlands, to the mountains capped with snow, Bitcoin Cash connects the world and helps our future grow. Yes, Bitcoin Cash connects us all and helps our future grow.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Happening is live.
There's a good number of fucking, like, pretty smart Bcashers.
All right, hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 143, Libertarian Politics and Crypto Culture, featuring Martha Bueno. Today is Sunday, the 2nd of March, 2025. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always, and the price today is up. It's pumping. We're going to talk about why in just a second. BCH, $339.07 for 100 megasats, which is up. One BTC sat buys 274.3 BCH sats, which is up. And one ETH buys only 727 megasats, also up. Selene 30-day users, I didn't actually double check this, but I think it's about 810. And the token on TVL is at 20,551 BCH. Our guest today is a freedom advocate and Florida resident, right? You're in that part of the world with Ryan Giffen, saving the world one libertarian advocate at a time. Welcome to the show, Martha. How'd you get into Bitcoin?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I got into Bitcoin through being a libertarian. That's how I learned about it. It was this currency that I guess like the way it was introduced to me was a way to circumvent the government. It was a way to not have to pay the government or use the government's currency. And this was a long time ago. This is back when the Silk Road was still up and running, long before Ross was ever tried, convicted, caught, and then now pardoned. So, I mean, like, it's been a while. Unfortunately, I'm not the most financial savvy. You know, I didn't see Bitcoin for what it now is, right? For the financial side of it. I just saw it as this really cool technology that could potentially save the world. You know, as somebody whose family left communism twice, they just spoke to me. It was like, oh, wait a minute. You mean there's a currency in the world that doesn't rely on the government, that we ourselves can use it? And it hit all those boxes. And I was so intrigued by it, so in love with it. But I didn't know how to buy it. And it was like, oh, I'll always buy it later. Like, no big deal. And, it was like a few cents, and then it was a few dollars, and then it was a few $100s. And I was like, I guess I missed the boat. And then it was a few $1,000s. I was like, no, I definitely missed the boat. And so, like, I feel like there's always that opportunity to get into Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, which is, I'm sure we'll talk about later. My still following that path that Bitcoin once was, which, now we're fighting for our political prisoners, and it feels like we're being targeted. So a lot to talk about today.
Saving the world. I love the way you said it. That's how I feel it. It's a bit of a revolutionary mission to save the entire world. I was explaining BCH to someone the other day, and the funny thing is you say that and they kind of laugh it off, or they don't really get it, because it's like you're deadly serious, but it's one of the things that somebody says it to you, it sounds like so ridiculous that someone's instinct is to laugh, like, oh, I'm going to be the Olympic champion of weightlifting or something like that. I'm sure there's guys out there who that's what they tell people, and then people laugh, and then they're kind of like, no, seriously, like I, train 7 days a week and I do everything like that. We're actually going to make this happen. So I'm sure you're very familiar with that in teaching, or the same with any libertarian based stuff as well too, right? Like that you actually follow through and practice what you preach on that. So I was curious about your libertarian origins then. Do you describe yourself as a libertarian?
Currently, I describe myself as a lowercase libertarian, which the difference being the uppercase L is like the party person. You're right. Lowercase. I tend to slide into anarchism more often than I intend to. And I think it's the natural progression of libertarians. Like, no, we need a little bit of government. And then you see the little bit of government not function well, and you're like, maybe we don't need it. But generally, I describe myself as a libertarian. I think that, there's also something to be said for doing things in order. And I think if we go from this big government to no government, well, that's going to leave us with a lot of chaos. So generally, lowercase libertarian, not a party member anymore, no longer believe that the party's going to save humanity or us or anything along those lines. So yeah, definitely libertarian leaning, anarcho-capitalist, if you will.
Yes, well, you're speaking my language. I mean, I've said before on this show, like, I don't think Bitcoin is libertarian-ish, but it's not like specifically libertarian, and I don't feel ever that I've been very strongly a libertarian in that sense. I've just been very freedom-minded, more anarcho-capitalist, or some people say voluntarist or something. But I always kind of think of it as like agnosticism, If you're agnostic, which I mostly am, then somebody says to you, oh, did you go to a church? And you say, no, I'm agnostic. The whole point is there is no church. So people who are in the like large L libertarian party, I've always sort of felt like, but the libertarian party shouldn't be a party. That's the whole point. If you're in that team, it's sort of self-contradicting.
Well, no, because libertarians aren't anarchists. That's the whole point. Libertarians believe in a small government.
So that's like minarchist, right?
Right, it's like a minarchist. But, they have certain beliefs, of which I agree with them wholeheartedly. It's the NAP, it's the non-aggression principle. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. Totally in the same camp with them. But then you see the reality, and for a long time I was a hardcore libertarian. I am a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party. I've run campaigns as a libertarian. I've done the work as a libertarian. And then I feel like it's just a progression. You get to a point where you realize, A, you're never going to be able to play the banker's game and win. And B, even if you win, what does that look like? You're going to get into power and tell people how they're going to rule their lives. Well, then that's not libertarianism either. So I think, the natural progression is you continue down that path and you're like, maybe not. Maybe being a libertarian just isn't for me. I like my authoritarianism as little as humanly possible. Ergo, it's hard to say, give me the power, because I'm gonna give you back freedom. That doesn't quite work. I've never seen it work.
Yeah, and so for me, I mean, I'm not American, right? So I'm familiar with a lot of this political stuff, but I've not really ever been personally involved, like in any of the Libertarian Party or anything that goes on over there in the States. I follow the Free State Project quite a bit. You know, I think that's really interesting, and I know there's like a lot of crossover as well there too. But for the listeners who are from all around the world, could you just give us a bit more detail on that those elements of the Libertarian Party that you're talking about, since you've got experience there?
Yeah, of course. So for anybody really interested, the Libertarian Party has a platform on their website. So you can go to the Libertarian Party, I think it's lp.org, and then /platform if you really want to like dive into it. And it consists of some really just key points. If you're not into hurting people, you would get it. So of course, don't start any aggression against anybody, but of course, defending yourself, totally acceptable. We don't believe in the state controlling us. So for example, the monetary policy, having a central bank that controls all of our monetary policy, that's not something we agree with. We don't also agree, although the Libertarians have now removed from their platform, we used to be not necessarily pro-abortion, just that the government doesn't belong in our bodies. So if somebody else can tell you what you can and can't do with your body, then who actually owns your body? If you are ultimately your owner, then somebody else can't tell you you have to keep a pregnancy, or you have to go to war, or you can't use specific drugs. So there's a lot of this, what is a libertarian? Well, it's somebody who believes that they ultimately own their body, and that you can't just aggress upon somebody else because you feel like it. You can only aggress upon somebody or defend yourself from somebody if they're attacking you. So that's kind of like the baseline of it. A lot more detail. I'm happy to go into it, but I don't want to bore your audience. Basically,
No.
live and let
That's
live.
good. Yes. Well, but see, the reason I ask also partly is because being sort of a step removed, like I'm sympathetic to those ideas, right? But then every time I look into it, then there's like little factions breaking down within the Libertarian, party, and you look into it and you're like, okay, this is a whole nother round of political drama and stuff that I just like do not have time to get into the details, and who's the good guys and who's the bad guys and who's said what about who, like that all goes back 100 years that everybody's been arguing about, and et cetera, right? And I find it very interesting to watch because it's very analogous to cryptocurrencies in that sense. If you get into any specific cryptocurrency from the outside, okay, this is a tool that I can just use to send money. But then once you get into it, of course, behind the scenes, there's who is mates with who, and who built this, and who develops this, and who had a falling out with who, and it's like the actual development of the technology or the ideology is often constrained by all the little bickering inside, right? So that actually the most effective communities are more about political alignment in a certain sense than they are about any other kind of aspect of the technology, right? I don't know. Clear this up for me. Is there tons of that in the Libertarian Party, or is that just something I've got wrong?
No, you've absolutely got it right. I mean, I think it's what happens with all of our communities. It's basically that you don't want somebody else to control you, so you want to make sure that the people that you like are in control of this thing. And I think that's exactly my point as to how you end up as an anarchist or as an anarcho-capitalist, or because you realize once you're there, like, I don't care if the person who is in control, if I like them or not. I just don't want to be controlled. So ultimately, it's the same thing with, Bitcoin. Or you don't want somebody controlling it. That's the whole nature of it. So of course, if there's somebody who has a bigger platform and is being able to manipulate, is able to, for example, get a lot of people together and change the systems, you're like, no, that's not what we wanted. Same thing happens here. And so you create factions. It's human nature to create factions, to create division, to, no, don't listen to what that person's saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I think it's just human nature. It is what it is. We're never going to change. And so I think that is why the progression is towards anarchism, because at the end of the day, if you want a system that is really going to work, there can't be anybody ruling over you. And I think that, the concept of crypto should be seen for other services that could be provided, such as for example, voting for things that we want. I mean, I don't think, or putting our property, for example, on a blockchain so that everybody knows this is what I own and it belongs to me and nobody else. So I think that we have the technology now to not need masters ruling over us. And I think that's where this is really intriguing to me. You know, we can do things that we would have never dreamed of being able to do, you know, even 50 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. And yet we're still like, please rule over me with, you know, be nicer to me. Don't put my friends in jail, you know, and meanwhile, I'm being robbed to put my friends in jail. Meanwhile, I'm being robbed to drop bombs on somebody. So I think the idea is once you get to a certain point, you just need to not have any rulers. And I think that's kind of the slow progression, you know, it's like the boiling of the frog, but in this case, in a good sense.
And the other way, the freezing of the frog.
And you're like, oh, it's hot in here. I want to move out of the system altogether.
Yeah, well, I think we're definitely on the same page in that. That's also why I feel like, cryptocurrency is a very pragmatic thing. You know, people can talk and pontificate about all these ideals and such, you know, so on. But cryptocurrency is really like about, well, do you actually use it then? Are you going to practice what you preach? Are you going to move some of your, like, vote with your money? You know, are you putting your money in there? Are you linking up with the community of people that also want to transact with those things? And just week by week, day by day, year by year, decade by decade at this point, you know, the whole world has really realized that this is a viable alternative system. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I don't run into people anymore who doubt that Bitcoin or crypto is a real thing. It wasn't that long ago that there was still people hanging on to this isn't going to work, it's going to fail, it's going to go away, the government's going to ban it, whatever the whole litany of reasons was. We're now firmly past the point. Even the crypto sort of skeptics, or, you know, they're focused on finding scams within the crypto industry or something. They've completely pivoted away from this is illegitimate or isn't going to work, you know. And having followed it for so long, I imagine you've seen that same thing, right?
Yeah, actually, I feel like now we've gone to like the other side of that, even where now the government embraces it. You know, now it's like, we're going to have a crypto reserve, which gives me, you know, I guess you can put on the tinfoil hat and get into the whole crypto conspiracy and the government conspiracies. But I'm like, oh, now the government likes it. I don't know how I feel about this. Maybe this isn't such a great idea. We're all like, yeah, Bitcoin reserve. And then the government's like, no, and we're going to go through all of these cryptos. And all the crypto bros are like, no, just ours. And it's like, yeah, funny how the government works. And we're all just kind of like, come on, government, pick my horse. My horse is better than everybody else's horse. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Yeah, so speaking of that, let's just touch on our community comment of the week here. It's literally like breaking news, you know, less than an hour before we went live here. But Donald Trump tweeted out, well, he didn't tweet, he put it on Truth Social, and then of course everyone reposted onto Twitter. He tweeted, quote, "A US crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Sol, and ADA. I will make sure the US is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again," end quote. And then after much immediate furor, as everybody said, well, what about Bitcoin? What about Ethereum? He then tweeted after that 1 hour later, quote, "And obviously BTC and ETH, as other valuable cryptocurrencies with a capital C, will be at the heart of the reserve. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum," end quote. So yeah, this just cuts exactly to what you're saying is, you know, people say, we don't need the government until it becomes, no, pick me, Mr. Government,
pick me,
right?
Pick my crypto. My crypto's the best crypto. I'm surprised he didn't add Bitcoin Cash in there. I feel like we don't have a big enough, I don't know, lobbying firm to go and pitch it to them, because I do know that you know, the Bitcoin team was very heavily involved with getting Donald Trump elected. He was at the Bitcoin conference. I personally, as a libertarian, I advocated for people to vote for him, specifically because of Ross Ulbricht. You know, for me, Ross Ulbricht was Neo, right? If you ever watched The Matrix, he's my Neo.
Yes.
he helped break the matrix in a lot of people's minds, and so.
Do you mean it was he the Morpheus then, or was he the Neo?
It's a good question. I always call him Neo, but that's a great
Right.
question. He could be either or. He could be like, here's the blue pill, here's the red pill. Although, he managed to get into the system and break out, so maybe he is Neo. I'm not sure. You know what? To be determined.
Yes.
But yeah, it was for Ross that I decided to go to the dark side and pick a horse in this race and, want to push forward Donald Trump. And now we see him creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So yay us, right? I mean, depends how you see it.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff, to be honest. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think I've made up my mind if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I guess if you want the price to go up, it's a fantastic thing. So yay for all of us who have any of these coins or all of these coins. I congratulate you all. You're all going to hopefully make a lot of money here soon. So spot on. But if it's about freedom, this concerns me. This is worrisome.
Yeah, well, I think it was interesting the way that it has been announced in these kind of two stages, where the initial tweet was for these ones, Ripple, Sol, and ADA. So you can kind of tell that however it operates, and who knows what is going on in Donald Trump's brain or in the sort of negotiations, but it feels like those three, like you said, with the lobbying, they have paid a ton of money. They've been in those back rooms. They've been trying to smooth over those deals, and however it worked, those three managed to get out in front as the leaders, right? And so he put that out.
I just want to point out that anybody that believes in the government still, I want to remind you that literally the crypto conference was happening at the exact same moment that Donald Trump was pumping his own coin. So just want to say that the people that, should have been paying attention, should have known, should have been involved, maybe purchased in at the ground floor or not, whatever, we're busy at a ball that, at the same time. So it's always like there's always a rug pull. There's always something. There's always a little unsavoriness. The government just wants to let you know, don't trust us. We're always going to give it to you when you don't want it and without Vaseline. But, hey, who am I? I'm just this girl telling you stuff on the internet. Don't believe me.
But so they put this out, right? And then that's it. It was another rug pull, because clearly the insiders would have been in on those three coins, knowing that he was going to announce these. They immediately all pumped 20 to 50% each, right? It's all going off. And the immediate reaction, of course, is, what about my BTC? What about my Ethereum? And those two are able partly just to ride on the large market cap and network effect, but also, like you said, on the intense lobbying efforts. And this is going to feel really bad for the people who are in those BTC specifically lobbying efforts, because they will now feel like they've been passed over, right? The whole Bitcoin strategic reserve has turned into the just whoever kind of grifts their way into it, right? Which I sort of feel is a bit predictable. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's it's a lot about grifting. I just saw a comment on the screen come by. It's like, well, they didn't accept BCH, so you're still legitimate. It's like they also didn't accept Monero, so woohoo! Make sure to diversify, I guess, and then you have your two streams. You've got your thing that you really believe in, and the one that hopefully will make you a lot of money in this clown world. So, how do I feel about all of this? It's I often say this, and I don't think that people get what I'm trying to say necessarily, which is the government's not going to give you the tools to end them. They're never going to give you the education you need to stop them. They're never going to give you the financial means to stop them. They're never going to give you the actual tools. Oh, you're allowed to have guns? That's cute. We're allowed to have nuclear missiles, and, we're allowed to drone strike people. It's always adorable that we think we're somehow competing with the government. So, oh, okay, now they're going to allow your extra coins. Yay, you win.
Yes. Yeah, well, I just feel like it's going to happen, that like you said, with it being a bit of a grift and people, there's just always going to be some way that a new coin is going to get added. Somebody's going to pay the right person, and there's a change of, and like once this is all established, it's even more then, because then there'll be an election. Maybe the Democrats win next time, or maybe they don't, and then they get in, and then they're pumping their favorite coins and dumping whoever is in the insider lobbying.
I mean, we're just missing a Bernie coin at this point. Like, come on. What, are we going to go with like a commie coin next? Like, come on, let's go. Let's see what the Democrats have in this space. Something's coming, that's for sure. What's going to happen in 4 years? And like 10 years from now, is the Donald Trump coin going to be worth anything? Like, sure, it's great. He's the president now. You're giving him money. He's creating this thing. I mean, yay you. What's going to happen when he can't run again? What's going to happen when he's no longer popular? Like, who remembers, I don't know, Calvin Coolidge? Like, does his coin, if he would have started a coin back then, would anybody be buying it? Would it be changed? Like, it's almost ridiculous to watch, but also fun. Like, I used to watch reality TV back in the day. I used to, like, my guilty pleasure was like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, because I was like, I need to watch something like trashy after a full day of using my brain. I need something that's like just nothing. And now it's like, I don't even need that, because I can just turn on the news. And it's like mindless entertainment. Oh, yay, now we're going to pump this coin. Fun.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I don't have a strong need for reality TV shows, because Twitter is just even better than that. You get, and it never stops either. It's not like, it's like they never run out of production budget. They're always just coming up with newer and better plot lines. Like
those accounts, like the Defiant L's or the I Find Retards. Oh my God, they do the work for you. It is reality TV to the nth degree. It is so good.
Yeah, I have to be careful with those ones, because I do sometimes they have a good one and I'll laugh at it, but I know there's a part of my soul that is like, it's not good for me to be, because anytime you're looking at any of those ones, okay, this guy contradicted himself or whatever, you're just like, yeah, but I'm not getting anywhere. There's idiots everywhere, like, so I have to moderate. But it's like junk food. You gotta moderate it.
But it's fun, and hey, if you gotta laugh somewhere. I mean, the world is definitely scary, and you gotta get your laughs where you can. And hey, people voluntarily say stuff out loud.
Yes. Well, that's the best bit. Somebody voluntarily said this. I love that. That's the best bit about it, especially if they get them like, it's like 2 weeks apart or something. They're like, red is the world's best color. And then it's like 2 weeks later, like, anybody who thinks red is good, just what are you even doing? I can't believe you're a real person. And it's like, oh,
my
man.
absolute favorite was when the left was having a meltdown. Elon Musk isn't elected. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure that nobody at the EPA, DEA, FDA, all of you were following mask mandates and vaccine mandates. None of those people are elected either. So, yeah, I'm not vouching for Elon. I don't know him personally. I don't know what he's about. I don't know if Doge is a good thing or it's a bad thing. Again, going back to my comment on the government isn't going to end itself. Take it for what you want. But also, nobody at the IRS, the Fed, any of these people are elected. So, it's kind of like that Defiant L moment where it's like, tell me more about not being elected and how that's a bad thing.
And it's all just tribal signaling, really, at the end of the day. Have you been impressed by the Trump administration with regards to Doge and in the sort of crypto arena specifically? Do you think they're living up to their sort of promises, or are you still not sold on it?
I love what they're doing, and I love that they're drawing attention to the real problems. I love that people are seeing the absolute corruption. I love that people are seeing the absolute waste. I love that people are like, wait a minute, how many billions are going to these foreign countries? Meanwhile, we have no money for these things. So I love that side, and I can't deny it. I enjoy constantly seeing, people having meltdowns. Oh no, we need Social Security. Oh no, we need all these things. Okay, fantastic. But then the flip side of that is, again, you're never going to be told the absolute truth, and government isn't going to give you the tools to end themselves. So Doge to me represents potentially removing people, actual humans, out of government and turning it over more into an AI. To me, this is a ushering in of a technocracy. whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. It's ushering in more power. It's like saying you can keep your musket while we're going to get these drones that can bomb people. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to remove these people. We're going to save some money. But in reality, we're going to be putting in these processes and these solutions that are probably worse than what we have now. I almost prefer the ineffectiveness of humans, and they just don't have the motivation to really do things. So government has been progressing at a relatively slow, moderate pace. Of course, it gets bigger and bigger every year, and more, it takes more and more of your rights every year. But it's been easy enough to monitor it. But once everything's done with AI, once everything is managed by something else, I think we're ushering in worse. To me, this is very Orwellian. And I hate to be the black-pilled person because, everybody's like, oh, but Martha, look how wonderful it is. We've never had a government like Elon, almost called him, almost called Elon the president, like Donald Trump, we've never had this. And you're right, we've never had this. This is new. So maybe I'm wrong, and you can toss my black pill out with, everything else I say. But to me, it's very Orwellian. I'm concerned. So do I love Doge? Sure, I do. Would I have Elon Musk's 15th baby? No, I wouldn't. So there you go.
He was racking up number 14 this week. That's the real reality TV element of it, isn't it?
Oh
it's
my
like,
God, and all
who
the
needs
baby
keeping up with the Kardashians?
I'm like, Elon, contact me. Your son's in the hospital. It's like, whoa.
He probably does it deliberately at this point. I feel like he's like, all right, let me just ignore a couple of her text messages, see if she makes a bit, we need some more action on Twitter. He's got his own, marketing department. He's like, we don't need to pay for ads because we can just let them stir up some more eyeballs.
And, I don't even know all their names. Whatever.
Grimes, you got Grimes and whatever the other ones.
The other one that just had the baby, Siobhan, is it?
It starts with an S, I know that, yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many, and I feel like, it's weird the women he chooses to have babies with.
Right.
There's definitely
you think there's a pattern
there. Huh?
You think there's a pattern?
I'm gonna say there probably is. I haven't gotten down to it. Don't I'm not saying that I know what that pattern is, but
yes.
It's kind of cute.
It was absolutely insane. I think that people get themselves into this kind of stuff. I cannot imagine living a life where you were just under that insane amount of scrutiny. It would be absolutely incredible.
Man,
but
at the same time, it's the ultimate sugar baby. I mean, you have one of Elon Musk's kids, and you get your life paid for. I mean, I feel like this is the welfare people.
That's the cash out. Yeah. That's the real Doge line item, Elon's baby mama list. That'll be the next thing. Daycare. Okay, a few.
Daycare. You got 20 nannies. Oh no. Honestly, that is winning the lottery. I think, and then you see these women having meltdowns on Twitter, and you're like, maybe it's not the lottery they thought it was going to be. I have 4 of my own kids, so it's I'm joking about it, but it's also really sad because I think it's also giving this impression that it's okay if you have a lot of money, you can just impregnate all these women and have all these children that you're really not going to be paying attention to. I mean, how old is Elon? In his 50s?
Yeah.
You're having a baby now. That means when your baby's 20, you'll be 70. You're not going to be here for these kids, really. And it's not about the money. Kids, even if you have all the money in the world, kids need a mother and a father. I mean, unless these women can have relationships with other men who are going to help raise them. I don't know. It's a little sad, actually. It kind of makes our existence transactional, even.
Yeah, well, on that topic, just to bring it in back a bit more to crypto, do you have any thoughts with kids then and crypto? Is that a good opportunity for parents? And it's a trend I've noticed specifically in the BCH community is that it's one of the smaller communities, right? So it hasn't kind of got out into the broader, diverse demographic as things grow. And one of the most, highest segments of listening to this show is the age range 25 to 45 of men, right? And a lot of them that I've noticed just from, being part of the community is with young kids as well, too, obviously, right? So I think that that's a strong basis for a community, because then you already have the next generation there. You have people who are very heavily invested in the future, and people talk about, okay, how do I get, my kids involved in this? How do I teach them how to handle money in this world where they're going to be able to get scammed out of all their crypto allowance in 5 seconds online if they're not careful, right? Do you have any takes, or how do you do your crypto parenting?
Oh man, it's been hard because I have 4, and so I have some that are totally into crypto, and then some that are like, no way, no how, no can do. Like my daughter specifically is like, I don't even want to learn about this thing, and I think it just shows that crypto is, I think, appeals more maybe to the male brain, which is certainly in my case why I connected with it, but I connected with it on the liberty side, not necessarily the financial side. Meanwhile, my youngest son has been the one educating me on a lot of different things, on a lot of technologies. He's 15, and he can talk to me like, some of the people that I meet at conferences for this. So it's like, wow, I really think that it's hard. And I think that anything that you do as a parent, if you're like, definitely do this, they're going to do the opposite. So, if you're a parent out there and you want to start an account for your kid, you want to get a hard wallet for your kid, and you want to do these things, by all means do it. But I think the best way is to just kind of leave that door open, come talk to me about it. You should. And then, like there's that joke where, Halloween rolls around and you take 30% of their candy as taxes to show them about taxes. So, I'm sure that somebody out there has created a way to prove to their kids why fiat is a terrible solution for their kids. But it's such a hard topic, and it's so... you'd have to educate them on, the problems with government, the problems with the actual currency that they know that they were taught in school. So you're almost brainwashing them after the brainwashing they received in school. So if you really want to teach your kids crypto, first of all, pull them out of school. Do not send them to government indoctrination camps. They're not here to teach your kids. They're never going to teach them about crypto. They're never going to teach them about gold and silver either. They're never going to teach them about anything of value. They're not going to teach them how to raise animals or food or anything of value. They're going to teach them to sit in a chair and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and do the things that they're supposed to do, whatever that thing is. So first step into being a crypto parent, get your kids out of schools.
Yeah, exactly. We've recently had been talking to, I don't know how much I want to say about this, but just people in the community who've been having problems in different countries with homeschooling, which to me was like mind-blowing. I didn't even know this, but in Australia, you can homeschool your kids, but there's some sort of rules about they have to, follow some certain curriculum or pass like some kind of standardized test or whatever.
Same in the
States. I thought, okay, well, that's not ideal, but maybe it's a fair enough sort of compromise, because I feel like in that situation, you can homeschool your kids, spend 2 months of the year and, blast them through whatever is the standard like pace, get that done, and then you have the rest of the time you can teach them actually useful stuff. So that kind of works out. But I've discovered that there's all kinds of countries where it's illegal to actually homeschool your kids at all, and some other ones where it's either, like borderline or fringe, or the requirements are so onerous as that it's effectively illegal, which I just had no idea. I had no idea about. But in large, parts of the world, many different countries, you can investigate and discover that that's not even an option.
You know where it's illegal? Cuba. A communist country will not allow you to educate your own children. And as a matter of fact, it's illegal for you not to teach your children about the regime. So you have to teach your kids that Fidel Castro and Raul Castro and now their current dictator, Diaz-Canel, like you have to teach your children this. And if your children go to school and they're like, no, my parents don't believe in that, the parents can go to jail. So the reason I bring this up is because when you say you're not allowed to teach your kids your values, look around and wonder why that is. In the United States, we've fought for it. I'm good friends with Corey DeAngelis, who's one of these people that I think is like forefront in demanding that we have the right to be able to educate our own children. And I absolutely love what he has to say, because he's out there being like, you know what? It's your child. You should be able to, and it's actually cheaper for you to educate your child than for the state to do it, and you do a better job, et cetera, all those wonderful things. So yeah, and then you contrast with like, which countries are the freest countries allowing us to educate our kids? No. And like, am I surprised that, for example, in North Korea wouldn't allow parents to educate their kids? No, because they need you to know the propaganda, and you have to teach your kids that propaganda. So the freer you are, maybe you're allowed to educate your kids. So definitely, if your country doesn't allow it, ask yourself why.
Yeah, damn. And I mean, it's just such a realization. It's also another interesting part of crypto is that it then brings you into contact with so many more people who are resilient or resistant, I guess, to those different ideas, right? Like, I have only discovered this whole, world of problems now that I was unaware of, because most people are just kind of going along with it, and they're never at the edge trying to explore what is and isn't possible, So in that way, yeah, crypto is going to be a crazy network. I feel like not only for us now, but there's all going to be a generation coming up who are on like the most crypto friendly parents. I feel like that generation is also going to all link up within themselves, because their parents are more connected and they're more ideologically aligned. So I wonder if that's going to have
in their basements hiding out from the world because we're conspiracy theorists putting ideas in our kids' heads like, no, everybody's out to get you. So it could go either way, is all I'm saying.
I think
yes,
it could be important then to just really focus on the it's just money part of it, right? Like, you don't have to worry about any of this. I think one of the most impactful things to onboard family members to crypto for me was actually building a little candy machine that my 6 and 7 year old sisters can use, and just scan a QR and get, like a dollar store candy handful of candy. And they don't have any idea what's going on. And it's just a fun time for them.
And I don't want them to know either. I want kids to be kids. Kids don't need to know all of these stuff. We don't need to be telling kids about the realities of the world. I mean, I hope you all had good childhoods, but I had one where I didn't know the problems my parents were going through. We should really focus on doing that for kids. Versus the government is evil and all the money is fake.
Yeah, exactly. There's certainly a time and a place, and in the modern world, it's harder than ever, I think, for kids to have that period of innocence, and they're just so plugged into everything online. Do you have a take as well? It's sort of semi-related, a little bit off topic, but semi-related. I was reading a bit about some people who have different takes on their kids with screens, right? That some people, like, I just walk around, I see, 2 or 3 year olds or whatever, they're already zombies. Their brain is fried. They are staring at an iPad with flashing, blinking lights, dopamine levels through the roof. And like, those kids, I'm sure that their brains aren't going to turn out that well. But then how do you actively sort of monitor that? And I even heard about this school of thought where some people say, okay, it's kind of inevitable. So what you have to do is you have to sort of negotiate with your kids about it, that if they want to use the iPad as much as possible, that's okay, if they are able to actually explain it to you in a way that sort of makes sense, rather than just, okay, I just want to sit here and play this like Candy Crush all day. But if they are able to actually reason out with you, oh, I want to watch a video on this educational thing for, such and such a reason, which I thought was quite an interesting approach. I don't know if you have any takes on that.
Oh, that's such a hard topic for me because my oldest child is 24 now. So I've been a parent since before social media was a thing, really. MySpace was a thing, but kids weren't really on MySpace. I mean, young kids weren't on MySpace. So I've been a parent for long enough that I went through there were no iPads, to the creation of the iPad, to now everybody's glued to their phone, to their device. And honestly, it's really hard to know what the right balance is. So I think this has to be like on a case by case basis, but I'm addicted to my phone. I'm addicted to it. So how can I expect this child that has no notion of boundaries and what's good or bad for them to be able to make this decision for themselves? So I think it takes a lot to parent your child and be like, you can have an hour, or you can do this, or you can do that on it. I absolutely love that your kids can go on YouTube and learn all sorts of things. You know, you can learn about gardening, you can learn whatever it is, the topic that you're interested in, you can learn about it. So there's just positives. But then if you're spending 23 out of your 24 hours, you know, on a device, that's a problem. So how do we deal with it? How do we navigate? Definitely not my forte. I will say that it definitely contributes to ADHD. At least in my case, I used to be able to focus long stretches of time, and now it's like I'll start focusing and then I'll pick up my phone and, well, did somebody say something? You know, so I think it's definitely a problem. We should be addressing it as parents. We should figure out what works best for our kids. But it is scary. And then at the other side of it, you don't want your kids left behind. You don't want your kids not to know how to do all of these things. So leaving them out of the technology also seems like a problem. So, you know, with that said, don't look to me for parenting advice. I've managed to keep my kids alive for 24 plus years. But other than that, yeah, good luck out there. It's actually hard, and nobody gives you a manual. It's surprising. They hand you this kid at the hospital and they're like, good luck, and you got to figure it out. So can't say that I'm your person for that. If you are looking for like unconventional parenting advice, Dana Martin. She's part of the Anarcho team. She's good friends with Lynn Ulbricht, Ross Ulbricht's mom, and she does the unconventional parenting style. Definitely check her out. I think she's taught me a great deal about being a mom and, you know, doing stuff. But ooh, I'm not good at this.
Well, I think you're doing all right. If you got four kids, you're doing pretty good. There you go. I'm sure they'll be all right. Okay, so back to crypto then. One of the trends that we've been seeing this year, I feel like, is that CBDCs, which have been not exactly rumor mongered, but for the last couple of years on this show, we've been following the development of CBDCs, and it feels like in 2025, maybe CBDCs are not arriving, but they're getting backdoored in through stablecoins. So I've got a clip here from the All In podcast, absolutely amazing show, which touches on this, and let's just hear what they had to say, and then I'll add some commentary on that.
With cross-border money movement and
stablecoins, we got to talk about
stablecoins.
You guys got a stable.
Yeah.
Why'd you do a stablecoin?
Stablecoins are finally happening, and they're really useful. Like, we followed crypto for a long time. The Bitcoin white paper dropped in 2008, the year before we started working on Stripe. And so it's been funny where Stripe and crypto have grown up together. And, you know, we tried to make Bitcoin happen as a payment method on Stripe. Just wasn't that good as a payment method. I mean, it's good as a store of value, as kind of a gold substitute, but transactions are slow, transactions are expensive. You never know exactly how much you're going to get because it's not denominated in dollars. The stablecoins are now really good. If you look at, you know, something on an Ethereum L2 or Solana or something like that. And so we bought a company called Bridge late last year who was building the Stripe of stablecoins. And so
with cross-border money movement and
stablecoins, we got to talk about stablecoins.
You guys got a stable.
That's it. Yeah, so these are the guys from Stripe who process over $1 trillion of payments every year, and is so painful as a Bitcoin casher to hear him say Bitcoin just isn't that good and it sucked for payments and all that stuff. And obviously by the time they tried to use it for payments, it had already kind of been hijacked, and it's just a case of how much momentum was lost there. But nevertheless, we're in this world where stable coins are increasingly popular, and I feel like for these guys, it just sort of makes sense in a way to them that they can end up running the financial system, you know, with no change made in a certain sense if they're in control of. They talk a lot about reputation management and about being able to freeze the funds of, you know, unidentified providers and that kind of thing. Do you see this trend also, that CBDCs maybe, you know, everyone was freaked out that the government was going to release a CBDC, but as it turns out, maybe they're just going to be like, oh, somebody else already built some stable coins with inbuilt controls for us. Let's just get a slice of that and carry on.
Seems to be what's happening. I mean, I hate to keep going back to it, but the government's not going to give you the tools to free yourself. So Yeah, probably so. Why bother build something new and do something when it's already being done for you? I think there's plenty of legislation already there that the government's now not able to create CBDCs. So this kind of solves the problem for them. Now they get to create, or not create, use somebody else's coin for a backdoor channel into controlling us and have. I mean, already so with the KYC of our coins, they already had all of our information. They already know who owns things. It used to be the joke, like I used to have Bitcoin and then I lost it in that unfortunate boating accident. You can't do that anymore. The government now knows $600 worth of transactions. They know everything about you, everything of where you've spent your money. So yeah, probably.
Things are getting. Well, yeah, it's just for me, on the last couple of years, every year I remember we would do the year review, 2023, 2024, maybe even 2022, and just say, like, is this the year that CBDCs is going to start coming in? Like Aaron Day, he's done a ton of work looking into all those, different schemes that they're always trying to cook up, and then some of them kind of, fall by the wayside, but some of them are clearly just building up to when they're, the control grid can kind of be rolled out. But pragmatically, day by day, the way it seems to have gone instead is just the stablecoin providers have grown enormously because the whole cryptocurrency, the currency part was mostly taken out of it and it was put into store of value or essentially meme coins and gambling kind of addiction, right? And so then stable coins have now been smoothly inserted into the middle where they're more and more being used in these so-called, quote unquote, legitimate commerce. And that's provided a convenient control point for the government. And I just think it's so interesting, that these guys were talking about this recently because they're crypto friendly in the sense that they like technology and all that sort of stuff, but they're also in with the big money who are building all this stuff. And for them, just complying with the government completely and totally is simply just a requirement. Like they just have to do that. And there's no way they're not sort of the rebels at the edge fighting back against the system. So ideally, I feel like we would be nice if this was a way that crypto got in and kind of into the government, and then everybody slowly moved over to the more freedom-oriented coins as the barrier to entry dropped and crypto wasn't so scary to them, and it's much easier to swap crypto for crypto than fiat to crypto. So that's my optimistic take, but my pessimistic take is these systems will just get too much traction and then that will be it. Everybody will have been bait and switched onto CBDCs without realizing it. Thoughts?
We were already bait and switched. We've already been bait and switched. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin from 2017 to now, we've already been bait and switched. I mean, when somebody like Roger Ver is being attacked by the U.S. government for literally pointing out how we were bait and switched, how we were hijacked, how it went from a payment system that was going to compete with Visa, MasterCard, because now we have Zelle, now we have all these other ways to send fiat. So people don't remember what it's like in 2017. I know it just happened not that long ago, but people tend to forget. Our memory is pretty short on this. So we've already been bait and switched. We went from cryptocurrency being used as a form of payment. We saw how in places like Venezuela, people were using it to be able to transact amongst themselves, not using the government. And now it's just a store of value. And if you talk about it, and if you're somebody who's vocal and is like, you know what, this is being used for something, this was hijacked, this is not what the white paper said. White paper said that it was a payment system, not a store of value. So if you're somebody like that, then the United States government may potentially come after you for 109 years in jail for simply talking about it, and trying to give up your U.S. citizenship and paying your taxes. And then they make it seem like, Roger Ver, somebody like Roger Ver is evil for not paying his taxes. Are you kidding me? He hasn't been a U.S. citizen for over 10 years. Now you're going to come back and be like, hey, sir, you owe us money. Okay, how much? And they won't even let him know. They won't even tell him you owe us X amount. And they went into his attorney's office, guns blazing, and stole all the documents that violates attorney-client privilege. Clearly, there's something going on here where the United States government says something but does something completely other. They say they're in favor of cryptocurrency. They're creating, all of these reserve strategic funds or whatever. But in the reality, the things that they're doing is the complete opposite. So, it's really hard to be in favor of stable coins when clearly, if it's something the government is happy to have, not going against, then it's not something I want to be a part of. And I just think that we're being lulled into some ideas of, oh, well, the government's behind it, so it's going to be pretty stable, this is going to be good, this is going to be great, just trust the process or whatever. But, and here I am again with that black pill. I'm just concerned. If the government is so in on it, do you want to be a part of this? And shouldn't you be a little more concerned and looking at it, through another lens? And with that said, definitely everybody should check out Hijacking Bitcoin by Roger Ver. Excellent book. If nothing else, it gives you a little insight into things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And if you absolutely believe it, if you buy it hook, line, and sinker, well, then we can totally be friends.
Yes, indeed. So this kind of brings us to this point of how do we get that education out there, with regards to the history of Bitcoin, or even in differentiating Bitcoin Cash or Monero or some of these other tools from what has now just been sort of absorbed into the system. It's a bit of a potential, like a perennial problem, staying one step ahead of the sort of propaganda and narratives. Do you have any thoughts on, firstly, what's been effective so far to date up to 2025 and what we need to look out for going forward?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is do the thing, right? So if we're saying that these coins can free a nation or these coins can do something, then we need to do it. What was the number one thing that made Bitcoin rise? I believe it was the Silk Road. Being able to use your currency the way that it was intended and being able to see it in action, I think is the best way to educate / move people forward. For the longest time, I've wanted to find a way to help Cuba with cryptocurrency. Monero was the coin that I thought would work best for Cuba, and then the Cuban regime came out and created their own. It's called Cuba Pay, and it uses Bitcoin, conveniently enough. And so I realized that if we really want to make this community grow, if we're going to need to do the job. We're going to need to create a type of Silk Road, but not for drugs, for people in Cuba, for example, to be able to buy and exchange anything they want, and use coins that are actually will protect them. So I know that there's a group of guys in Cuba right now that are using Bitcoin Cash. They started off with Monero, and now they've moved on to Bitcoin Cash because it's easier to accept, it's more people have it, whatever the case may be. But either way, both of these coins I think would work great. And we just need to do the thing. I'm not technical enough to build this. I've been trying for the longest time to get people on board and be like, come on guys, 90 miles from US shores, you've got a country which is basically an island of people who are, it's a plantation. I don't know how to say that nicely. It's a slave island. It's a place where the government owns the people and can farm them out. They farm them out for medical, for teaching, for military services. They sell them to other countries. The Cuban regime collects that money and then pays them a very small amount, and they are forced to hand over their passports, or forced to live within the regime system. So if we really wanted to have a use case, I invite everybody to look at Cuba, see what you can do there. I would say Cuba over North Korea because it's a lot easier and a lot more people speak Spanish than Korean. So yeah, let's try that. But it was working in Venezuela. We saw Bitcoin working in Venezuela. Venezuela was one of the #1 countries in the world using Bitcoin in 2017. And right now they're using gold. So it just goes to show that you can manipulate a currency the way Roger Ver says. And again, you don't have to believe any of us. Just look at the evidence for yourself. Why are we not using Bitcoin to transact anymore the way that we used to? And yeah, no, I get it. People still transact in Bitcoin. I get that. I get that the exchanges are working 24/7. But it's not what it used to be. And if you were around at that time, you know what I'm talking about. You know the difference. You know that people were using it to, send each other. So going back to the Cuba thing, when the regime got involved, I think that just proved how much Bitcoin had actually been hijacked. And I don't blame the Cuban regime. I too would want this digital gold currency, especially in exchange for what I like to call Chuck E. Cheese coin, because the MLC that they give you in Cuba is a currency used nowhere else in the world. It's actually not even a currency. They don't even give you a piece of paper that says, here it is. They give you a Visa gift card, and you can only use it in government stores. So imagine somebody from, I don't know, Miami, we have the largest Cuban diaspora, send somebody in Cuba a Bitcoin or whatever fraction thereof, and then the people receive it in this government useless currency. So the Cuban government, brilliant. I mean, it's like, bravo, guys. You guys are so good at what you do that you've managed to now take possession of this wonderful currency and exchange it for Chuck E. Cheese coins. They're doing a fantastic job. I hate to say it. I'm totally anti-communist. I wish those people nothing but the worst. But here they are. They're doing this job. And meanwhile, our community filled with all these brilliant people, I would love to see us rising to the occasion and finding a solution that we could offer not just Cuba, but the rest of the world. But here we have this incubator. We have this place where if you can solve a problem there, you can solve a problem for the rest of the world.
Yeah, no, this is a fascinating thing because I'm aware of this BCH, projects that have been going on in Cuba. I might actually have to try and find somebody who's more, heavily involved to give a full breakdown of what's going on sort of on the ground there, But as far as I am aware, it's actually part of the difficulty is they can't necessarily be so public about it because if they attract the wrong kind of attention, then that's actually going to make it harder than easier for them to do what they're doing. And with BCH adoption hotspots, one of the things the community has learned is that every locality has its specific circumstances. There's been no one formula that works uniformly everywhere. Like in Slovenia, it was done by partnering with a couple of the supermarket chains and the payment terminals, and that's rolled out everywhere brilliantly, but there's not like a strong organic local community necessarily. And then in BCH Argentina, they've done a great job where they maintain all their own sort of infrastructure in terms of merchant directories, in terms of getting people to pay peer-to-peer and stuff like that. In the Philippines, with the Paytaka guys, they do it by linking up with the corporations that own the sub-businesses in a local area. And so they kind of find the key players in the local economy and get them on board and then roll it out as a consumer payments network. So everywhere has its own challenges and strategies, which is why it's hard in a way for the community to coordinate like one thing that would just work. A solution for Cuba would have to come from people on the ground in Cuba, but of course the community as a whole can certainly be more supportive and trying to find ways to assist them. Part of the difficulty also I know has been, like in places like Venezuela and in other places too, BCH is very easy to send to someone, but it's very hard then to verify that it was spent effectively. And I know that's also been a huge problem in terms of, you can have an area where people say we need some BCH and we'll build this, we'll, spread it to the local community, we'll do whatever. But there's been several instances of money getting repeatedly sent to somewhere that said they were going to do a great job, and at the end of the day, like once one person went along to actually have a look and see all what had happened, it had all been essentially, spent, whether through, naivety or grift or just ineffectiveness, who knows, the money was all just gone. Do you have any insight for us then from that kind of close to Cuba but outside of it view of how would we keep an eye on any money or funds being spent there working effectively if communication is not so easy?
Well, yeah, so that's why I think it needs to be more in terms of, for example, doing a Silk Road type of thing. So Cubans can't really exchange within themselves. Like they can't sell something to their neighbor, for example. Like it's not really legal. And so it would have to be like a type of Silk Road thing where then people from the US, so remittances is the number one thing that Cubans receive. So it wouldn't have to be from the community that they receive the money, but we would need to set up something that is easy for them to receive it and then be able to spend it in their own communities. That's why I'm saying like more of creating a eBay style, Silk Road style website where people can then use either BCH or Monero, because they are already learning from their government, from Cuba Pay, what Bitcoin is and how they can use it. As a matter of fact, Cuba Pay is connected so that they can pay their Wi-Fi, they can pay their electricity, like they can pay the government their services in that Bitcoin that they are sent, or like I said, take it as MLC in that Chuck E. Cheese coin. So that system's already there. The original challenge when I first started getting involved more in this issue was the information. It was a bigger hurdle because people didn't know what crypto was, didn't know how it worked, didn't have the infrastructure. The Cuban regime is doing that because again, it's been paying them, right? They've been collecting Bitcoin, which fantastic for them. So that infrastructure, it's getting easier. I think we can, build something that could help them. That's kind of where I see it, and then be able to use it in other places. Of course, I've also been hearing a lot from like places in Africa where that's also another, trial case that can be used. So I'm not, because I'm Cuban and because I see this problem 90 miles from my shores, I definitely would love to see that be our attention. But you know what? You don't have to stop there. If you can get people to transact in their communities versus using the government anywhere in the world, I'm for that. But I think once people see it actually set people free, then it'll be a force that we can't stop. Once you see it in action, again, people started like, wait, I can buy my drugs on the Silk Road, and then they'd buy it and be delivered, and it was great, right? Their quality was good, and they were like, oh, this is fantastic. That's really what made Bitcoin kind of jump off from an idea to this real thing. And we need to find something. And I think there's nothing better than freeing a community if you can make that happen. So I think my job here is to hopefully just get people that are way more knowledgeable, way more technologically advanced than I am to be like, let me think about this thing and see what I can do to free my fellow human kind from things that are happening, like in Cuba, where it's a dictatorship and people are literal slaves.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. Like this is where I'm seeing. Okay, this is a thing. We can start a Cuba BCH project or QBCH.
Exactly. QBCH.
we can get something going, in the community maybe. But yeah, I just know that it's definitely going to need someone like you, perhaps, who is far closer to the issue and is able to authentically talk to that community. But then once you have that link and that passion, then you can add some resources. You add, a few devs and a little bit of slicker marketing, and maybe something gets going. But yeah, maybe that's something we can talk through. So let's play with that idea a little bit then. Give me, in your ideal world, what would the solution look like? So you said more like a sort of eBay e-commerce type of thing. Step me through it. If I'm someone in Cuba and I'm logging onto this for the first time, what does it look like, and what am I trying to get done?
Sure. So right now in Cuba, if you want to buy or sell something outside of the government, you use WhatsApp. And they have community WhatsApp groups where, like, somebody says, the thing about Cuba, right, if you're leaving, if you're going to escape the Cuban system, you sell all of your stuff and hope to be able to bring, whatever money you make with you. Chances are you're not going to be able to. You're going to go through Nicaragua. You're going to walk up, literally walk through the jungles and try and make it to the United States and live, the life that everybody that is coming here is trying to get to. So people get robbed when they use that WhatsApp. It happens all the time. Send me your money and I'm going to deliver this to you. So there's already a system where people are looking for a solution and they don't have one. They don't have one that is rated like eBay was, like the Silk Road was. So that to me is the problem that needs a solution. And then it needs to be easier for Cubans to receive Bitcoin Cash. It has to be easier than what the government has, or at least at the same level. And that's where the real challenge is going to be, is educating people on why Bitcoin itself is not that great for them. First of all, there's rules on the books in Cuba that if you are, quote, anti the government, it is a minimum of a 10-year sentence. So a lot of times, if you use Bitcoin, it's very easy to trace who sent it to you and who received it and what you're using it for. So that right there is a big challenge with Bitcoin. It's a big challenge with, even doing these things. So I think it would be better to use a privacy coin so that you avoid that, because obvious reasons. Cubans are very well known for their firing squad, and they are, they are not afraid to use it. So yeah, I think that, the solutions, we already have them. It's more of a matter of creating a specific website that, I think that's something that somebody on the ground will have to talk, really bring their information to. But it doesn't seem like a crazy project. And I know that the guys that are currently working on BCH in Cuba are working on creating a bigger community. They also, from my understanding, were responsible for creating a Wi-Fi for a local community of teenagers, kids that are in school, so that they're able to access the internet outside of Cuba. I think a lot of people, what they don't know is that Cuba didn't have access to any technology, like any internet, anything that wasn't government propaganda, until about 2018, when the first cell phones were allowed to be put into people's hands and they started actually creating Wi-Fi network. Facebook is what most Cubans use, so that's where they get most of their outside of the propaganda thing. I love seeing them on Twitter. I think it's fantastic. We're finally, kind of getting them more information. But there's a lot of challenges, and I think that it's gonna be a while. But definitely having those kids able to access the internet is exciting. It's being able to learn things that you're not being indoctrinated with your government. And then, of course, I'd love to see somebody like Elon just send Starlink to Cuba, but I don't think that's going to happen. That PSYOP operation is big. I don't think we're going to see it happen. I would love to see Cuba have free access to the internet. So, we're already achieving it in small scale with something like Bitcoin Cash, but I'd love to see it in bigger, better. Now every Cuban has a cell phone in their hand, or not every Cuban, but a lot of them do.
Yeah.
And it's still to watch propaganda. It's to watch like the worst of the worst, and they're not really learning. It's crazy how that works. How you can have all this information and still be not know what to look for.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question, was what's the sort of cell phone penetration like there? Because if it's fairly good, then you've got to have two elements essentially, right? You need a way for people to get the Bitcoin Cash and then to spend it, right? Now, you said that remittances is already a very common and popular use case for crypto going into Cuba. So that's kind of perfect. If they already have the mobile phones, then that's also perfect. The infrastructure there is already, being built for just because we need it to have like Selene Wallet and to, all that. So you give someone in the US Selene Wallet, you give someone in Cuba to download Selene Wallet. Okay, there you've got your remittance and your money coming in. So the spending part is the bit that needs tackling. And you said, okay, they have the WhatsApp groups and then people are getting frauded there. How does that go down? So I want to buy, I don't know what I would be buying, a steak, right? I need to buy a steak for dinner. I go on a WhatsApp group called WhatsApp Steaks, or called WhatsApp Supermercado
they have a
or
particular
something.
name for it. I always forget it. It's like one of these made up words for their WhatsApp groups. But yeah,
right.
They have WhatsApp groups. I guess steaks are very.
But do you have to like barter with an individual person?
It's a back and forth. It's like, I'm selling whatever, a steak. And then you get all the messages from people. And a lot of these people will accept money from all of them and only have one steak to deliver. So it's a problem, because you can't rate them. You can't have that system, which, an eBay or Silk Road had, where it has the actual, rating. Oh, so-and-so, robbed me. So then that person is no longer accepted on it. A WhatsApp group, you can literally create a WhatsApp group for every city and rob them in everyone. Like there's no checks and balances. So that's really where the issue is. And I think that again, a website of that kind would be fantastic. Their cell phones are a little behind. I think they're still on 3G, but hey, it's good enough.
That's good enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's good enough. And so then the person who's delivering, so I go on the WhatsApp, I say, send me a stake. Someone sends me a message saying, I've got a stake and I want to sell it to you. We do a deal. I send them the money, assuming they're not frauding me. And that sounds like that's maybe where the biggest pain point is. But if they're not, then I'm buying what from somebody else in Cuba, right? I'm not talking to somebody in the States who's somehow shipping this to me. So it's a problem within the community, like the Cuban community.
Right.
And then I guess, I mean, my entrepreneurial mind is already saying, okay, so the next step would be if you had a system, let's say we had Selene Wallet, but with a reputation system inbuilt so that you could list yourself up there and build up ratings and reviews from other people, maybe, semi-attached to your wallet or your account or something like that. You have that. People are now transacting peer-to-peer with a reputational system. And then the system after that is to improve the importing, right? So that there's goods that you can only get in Cuba via being a part of this network, because that would drive massive demand if there was other stuff you couldn't get.
Well, I mean, you have to go back to the fact that everything in Cuba is owned by the regime. So, for example, if you're a farmer, the only place you can sell your produce is to the Cuban regime. So what ends up happening is a lot of times those produce will just go, will sit by the wayside and go bad because you're not allowed to sell it to your neighbor. So a lot of people will take a few and try and sell it on the black market. So what I think the solution is to turn that black market into something with a rating system, with something that you can take those goods and get them to people versus only through the government. And that's, the demand side, if you could only get things on Cuba, there's always going to be demand for these products that everybody needs every day. Cubans have a ration system. They go and they stand in line for their, rations, whatever that is, their eggs, their rice, their whatever. So there's always going to be a demand, because if you're receiving money from outside of Cuba, from remittances in the U.S., you have more money. You just need to find a place to spend that money. And that's one of the things that's really lacking, is the ability to spend your money somewhere and actually receive these goods. And I mean, it's a broader problem. I mean, the real solution, I think, is to just invade Cuba and get rid of these people. But I mean, we're trying to find solutions on a smaller scale and what we can do to help. But yeah, it's a big problem. I think the fact that Cuba is it's a slave state. It's a communist state. Everything goes through the government. Just makes everything so much harder, which I think makes it even more intriguing.
I do think that there, at least did at some point exist a practical solution, like that's hitting everything that you're talking about. So I don't think a website would work, at least not a website within Cuba, because then you have a centralized place to go and be like, all right, shut that down. I think even if it was outside the country, they could just block the domain, right? Then you have to have a bunch of mirrors, and that's this constantly changing thing that's hard to follow.
Right.
So you need some kind of decentralized and censorship resistant way to do that. So there was a piece of software that I think was in 2017, maybe 2018, called Open Bazaar. It doesn't exist anymore. There have been multiple versions of it that have come up over the years. They eventually die, mostly because they can't get enough traction from the get-go. And then the second thing is, because it uses IPFS to make sure that it is censorship resistant, it's really slow a lot of the time. And you need people to be online, not at necessarily the time of purchase, but to even receive notifications or things like that. So there's a roadmap on how we can do this, but there's a lot of technical challenges that would be big challenges. I think that would
this
really
is why I'm not the technical one. I'm telling you what we could do, and I'm hoping somebody way smarter and way more plugged in can help us out with this. I agree with you. There's a lot of challenges, and the real solution would maybe even be local websites, something that's very easily replicated in smaller communities. So yeah, I agree. There's a lot of challenges that we would face. And, the bigger solution would be to remove that government altogether. But I don't think that's something we're looking towards anytime soon.
Well, why not?
That's
Let's say
okay.
we get
Yeah.
250 people together. There's another, there's an island called Pitcairn in, it's in the Pacific Ocean. It's, I think, the most isolated country in the world. It's the hardest to get to. And it has a population of 50 people. It's this beautiful little island, but they had a massive, multiple scandals over the years because the people are too insulated. And I watched this documentary. It's what is stopping? I'm pretty sure Britain owns the country, technically. What's stopping them from just sending 100 people over and being this is ours now, guys? We're going to make this actually a place that people can comfortably live and not worry about getting assaulted.
Do they have resources?
No, not really.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, okay. Fair enough.
There you go. All right, there you go.
Yeah, but you have to work them. Cuba has fertile land, but that requires work. We used to be the tobacco capital of the world, right? That takes work. Cuba used to import very little food versus now they have to import actually, the United States, and I love how people always tell me the United States has a blockade on Cuba. No, they don't.
Yeah.
And the United States is actually the #1 exporter of all chicken, which is the #1 source of protein for Cuba, as well as most of their medicine. So, there's a lot of propaganda on a lot of these things, but ultimately, I keep going back to the same point. The government is just not going to tell you what you need to free yourself, to free others, and they're going to just do what they want. So we have to help people on other parts of the world who clearly need our help, but are also mineral rich or have other resources like poppy or oil or whatever. But you never see them actually helping countries that don't have those things, but that could really use the help. So, it's a curse and a blessing to be awake, I guess. But if you're wondering why those countries don't get saved, unfortunately, they weren't blessed with all the resources.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, I can see there's something to this. We're gonna have to refine and iterate on this idea a little bit, but it seems like a lot of the right pieces are there, where the BCH community already has quite a lot of the infrastructure. We can add some education, but like you say, that's already improving by a necessity. I'm not too worried about Jet's comments that IPFS is going to be slow and everything has to be hosted with that. Maybe, but I feel like, maybe there is a way, especially at a very small scale. You're not getting shut down when so that's not a problem you have immediately. It's maybe a problem that arises once you attract enough attention that there's kind of pushback. But at least for the initial versions, you could create a very small system with just a couple of people proving that it works, right? That they were building up reputation amongst each other, and then you build a peer-to-peer network that way. So I think there's a lot of merit in some kind of project in this area, but we'll need to workshop it a little bit more. It does sound ideal. Like if you could prove that it worked in Cuba, you're not going to have that much difficulty anywhere else where the barrier to entry is a lot lower, right? So I
you're
like
not going to get rich,
I like
I don't think. If you build the system, it's about doing the work. I don't think it's about becoming rich, which is the other side to this, right? Most people who want to go into something want to do it for, I want to help people, but I also want to make money. So it presents another challenge. It has to be somebody who just wants to work on it for the greater good, as opposed to building a wallet.
I don't know about that.
Huh?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I've built a wallet and I need users. I'm not there to charge them a bunch of money, because if they just are using my wallet, they're giving me feedback and building up the network effect. And if they're transacting in BCH, ultimately that benefits all BCH holders. So I think there's still a capitalistic element there, but it's okay if they're not, going to be signing up for the premium subscription immediately. If you can prove that BCH is working, well then that's more episodes of this show. Like I'm gonna have endless amounts of guests. So I think there's
and you speak Spanish, so let's go.
That's
you're
it.
the prime candidate right now.
Well, I'm just saying, we'll figure out a way to make this work. This sounds like a project in the works to me. All right, okay. We'll solve Cuba's problems after we get off air. In the meantime, though, you mentioned Ross Ulbricht before. There's been some sort of news on that front this week, and also Roger Ver with him obviously getting released, as we've covered on the show before. But he made a tweet which got more than 2 million views. It looks like it had 1.9 million views of the support of Roger Ver. So the dynamic has now kind of flipped, where Ross got out of prison and he's now tweeting in support of freeing Roger, who is currently not actually in prison, but he's sort of being detained, right? And he said, quote, "Roger Ver was there for me when I was down and needed help. Now Roger needs our support. No one should spend the rest of their life in prison over taxes. Let him pay the tax, if any, and be done with it. Hashtag free Roger." And he's put end quote, and he's put a photo there of Roger in 2014 holding up a freeross.org QR code, because Roger's obviously been supporting him throughout this entire thing. And then him on the right, 2025, with a free Roger sign. So it's a little bit of like, not karma exactly, but it's kind of like what goes around comes around. You've really got to support your friends and people who are ideologically aligned with you, because you never know when you're going to be the one needing help, right? And this has just made huge. Of course, many people have been tweeting about this issue and so forth. Vitalik also put out a tweet about it this week. So it's been great to see that there's been so much support, and it's really become a thing in the broader cryptocurrency space. But with this case of Ross specifically, it's just so interesting because he's emerging into this world where he has such a huge spotlight, like especially if he go to do an interview or anything, and if this Roger Ver's cause is on his mind, then maybe that will be one of the first thing he's using his new attention to highlight. Do you have any views on all this?
Oh, of course I do. Of course I do. These people are, I spent the last few years working on the Ross Ulbricht case. So this to me, I do love Roger Ver's case. I do think that it's upsetting. It's upsetting on so many levels, right? As an American citizen, to be looking at our government going after somebody who gave up his U.S. citizenship, to him facing 109 years in jail for something is just, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling how he even got here. But knowing what I know that Roger Ver was a huge supporter of Ross. He really helped out Lynn, especially in the early days when Lynn is Ross's mom. For those that don't know, for those who live under a rock and didn't hear that this amazing woman freed her son from the clutches of the United States government. I mean, she's my personal hero. I think she's a perfect example of what somebody can do if you never give up. If you never give up, she never gave up on her son. And she managed, after 11 and a half, almost 12 years of Ross being in a cage, to get him free. And Roger Ver was definitely there from the very beginning. I know that he and Lynn are friends. They've spoken many times. He has donated to Ross's campaign, as you see in that picture. He was there from day one, right? And he believed in it. And then to see Roger being arrested and seeing so many from our community come out and be like, well, I didn't like him since he put out that, hijacking Bitcoin. I just, my mind was blown. And it's not the first time. I've been to a lot of Bitcoin conferences and Bitcoin things. I handed out Bitcoin shirts at this last Bitcoin, not Bitcoin shirts, Free Ross shirts, Free Ross Day 1 and Free Ross Vote Trump shirts at the previous convention in Nashville. And so many people are like, who's Ross? What are you talking about? So there's a lot of people in our community that don't know where Bitcoin started and where Bitcoin's going. And that was my overall take. So you have an OG like Roger Ver, you have an OG like Ross Ulbricht, and they've been supporting each other. And you never saw Roger Ver come out and say, you know what, I would have supported Ross if only for blah, blah, blah. And you don't say, like, I absolutely hate what we've seen in our community. And I don't mean this to be like, you guys should do better, but you really should do better. You know, if you were out there celebrating that Roger Ver got put in a cage, shame on you. And I feel like it's costing friendships everywhere, but I don't really care. There were a lot of people that I thought were really awesome and I looked up to, and then they said some horrible things about Roger, and I was like, I can't be friends with you. I'm sorry. I don't really want to be friends with you because we don't share this ideal. You're coming here maybe for the, you know, Bitcoin to the moon aspect, and you're not coming here for the freedom aspect. And that's really, I think, what this is highlighting. These guys are coming here for the freedom aspect. Roger Ver is now facing 109 years in prison for not paying taxes, despite the fact that he gave up his citizenship in 2014, despite the fact that in 2014 to buy Bitcoin was back in the Mt. Gox days. Like, you really had to go out of your way to purchase Bitcoin. Money order, you know, it wasn't simple. And like I said before, the U.S. government invaded his attorney's office. Roger Ver sustains that he hired multiple people, experts, the top in the field, to be able to determine what he actually owed. He paid that, and then it wasn't until he released this book that they really came after him. They put him in the same cage that they put John McAfee, where McAfee was whacked, as his tattoo said. You know, and so now Roger, he's not in jail currently, but he also can't leave, and he has to check in every 48 hours with the Spanish government. And I believe they just lost their extradition appeal. So at some point, whenever the United States or Spain decides, they'll just knock on his door and haul him in and bring him to the United States, where I'm guessing he probably won't get the fairest of trials. So it is our goal to get Donald Trump, to get the people around Donald Trump to understand the insanity of this case. But more importantly, I want everybody here to understand what it means for you. And that means that your attorney-client privilege is done. It's over if this case moves forward. This means that if you call up an attorney and you tell them, I need help, all of that can be used by the government against you. And so if this case stands, it is bad for all of us. Forget about the crypto community. It is bad for all of us. And to see people in this community divided because he doesn't support the right cryptocurrency, F you to all of that. You know, like, come on, guys. We really need everybody in this community to be behind this case and to stand up for what's right. And Roger Ver, love him, hate him, I don't care. He's right.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. I mean, it's something that we've been, you know, following on the show week by week as it's played out, and it was sad news that the extradition appeal didn't really go his way. I saw something about, I'm not up with the absolute latest, but I saw something about there's sort of a secondary appeal or there's some kind of review meeting about that. So I don't know that it's quite yet at the stage of like, okay, off to the US, but I think any kind of moment like that is obviously going to be bad news. I do think obviously with the Assange case as well, we had that last year. That also almost was like, you know, coming down to that kind of moment, and then just at the last second things turned around. So you've got to live in hope, but it is just a terrible situation that we're seeing for him. And I guess to the extent that I see it optimistically, it has been that so many people in the crypto community have come out to set aside any of their previous, you know, beefs or whatever in support of it, and that kind of shows the good ones. You know, people will show you who they are if you just give them long enough, right? So definitely some people haven't risen to that occasion, and some have, you know. In following it on the show also with Ross getting out, you know, we were speculating about his point of view in catching up to all of cryptocurrency because he's been out of the mix for so long, and the whole industry, the whole world has just changed so much as to what he would make of that and whether he would be kind of pro BCH, having, being able to tell, like, okay, the Bitcoin that I had then is not the Bitcoin that I have now. And I think it'll be interesting when he gets around to making some longer form commentary about it as to whether or not he feels that the whole movement has been completely derailed. I would not be surprised if he did have a take like that, but it's hard for him to say that after so much work was done to free him personally. But I feel like the fact that he was, tweeting about Roger's case, which is not surprising because they've been, mutually supportive and friends for a long time, but it does essentially confirm that he will no doubt, read or have read Hijacking Bitcoin and catch up with everything that's going on. Oh, you can?
I can. I sent him that book before he was out of jail. And
Really?
I've heard that he did, in fact, read it, and he actually said that he has some questions for Roger. So I don't think that they've been able to speak. I don't think that they've had that conversation, but I do know that he did read it. So we'll get an answer eventually, I hope. But, I think one of the things that a lot of people, especially in this community, a lot of people have been requesting Ross to come speak at their events, to come out, to say something, to do something. And I think a lot of people don't understand what he's going through. And I count myself in that. Every time I hear something, every time I talk to his mom and she's like, this thing, I'm like, wow, I didn't even think of that. And you have to understand that he's spent the last 12 years in a cage. And, we got to give this man some time. It's like coming back from a war. It's like coming back from something. He didn't think that he was going to get out like this. Like, I mean, he's free now, but it's almost shocking. It's almost, there's a lot to this. Let's just put it at that. You've been in a real extreme situation where people control every single minute of your life. He was not allowed to have technology at all. He was punished for things quite often. And so let's just give him some time. I'm sure that Ross, like I said, I think he's my Neo. He's at least somebody that I think sees things. But I don't think he's going to be running to jump right back into that same system's hands. And having this much notoriety, having this much views, I think it's scary. And I think nobody wants to end in that same position where he was before. So, I know that his family is extremely grateful for everything that especially everybody in the community has done for him. I know that they are so grateful for everybody who voted for Trump, who made this possible. And, let's give the man some time. Let's let him get rid of that PTSD that I'm sure he has and come out and talk to us about it. But I can't wait.
Yeah.
I hope that they televise that conversation. I doubt they would. I doubt they'd make it a public conversation, but I would love to be a fly on the wall and hear what Ross is going to ask Roger Ver when they have that conversation.
Yeah, well, that's why, like you're saying, it's completely understandable that after being in his situation, I thought, well, maybe he'll just keep it quite a low profile for a while, which is why I think this whole tweet about the Roger Ver case is all the more noticeable. It really speaks to how seriously he takes that issue and, the whole history that they've had together and the long arc of cryptocurrency. And with this kind of thing as well, I'm hoping that it helps some other people perhaps see this in a different light, because in a certain way, they're on opposite sides of the coin, where Roger has been so heavily character assassinated for his involvement in various aspects of Bitcoin history, and Ross has been the other way around, especially recently with the whole campaign to with Trump that ultimately proved to be a success. That became a symbol that so many people found that they could relate to, or they got involved with, and they probably learned a lot about crypto and the history and all that stuff, with him being a positive figure in that, and so I think seeing the relationship that they have maybe will help people to understand, in their simple view of, okay, Ross is one of the good guys and Roger is one of the bad guys, and then wait, these two have been, mates for over a decade, and what's going on here, so I'm really just hoping that how visible that was has helped a few people to sort of maybe, that's when people change their mind, right? Is when they see something that they just cannot fit into their worldview and they need an explanation for. That's what motivates them to dig deeper. So, I think it's a really interesting case, but certainly no rush. Yeah,
I hope they do dig deeper. These guys have been on the same team for over a decade, and I think we're all on the same team, regardless of your coin. Or I think we all want pretty much the same thing, and that is a freer world. So yeah, hopefully you're right. I hope that they do see that. I hope that we are able to get more eyeballs on these issues. And just like these two guys, I mean, these are our high profile, but there's so many more. There's so many people being attacked for their views in cryptocurrencies, and for free speech. So we definitely need to keep, highlighting our people, our community, and trying to get them out of the grasp of the government. But there are definitely these, look at that, 1 million+ views, and I bet you it has more now. I just, it makes me happy that we're standing up for one another. I think we need more of that.
Yeah. It's just sort of one case, one day at a time. You gotta win one, move on to the next one. Okay, speaking of that,
we can do it with Ross. I mean, come on, we've got this, right? We can definitely free Roger. We can definitely free Ian Friedman. We can definitely keep going down the list, and why stop?
Well, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like winning to boost some momentum, and I think it was historic in that sense that it showed that it was possible, from a community, as you probably know better than anyone, who is prone to that kind of maybe victimizing at time, like, oh, the big bad evil government, and we can never get anything to work, and etc. More concerned with sort of the petty data.
Unlikely source too, because if
Yes.
you know the story of Ross Ulbricht, it was his mom, and when she started in her 60s, but now firmly in her 70s. Like, it's so amazing to me that this one woman wouldn't give up and went out into all these communities. I mean, what was a 60-something-year-old in the early days of Bitcoin coming around to Bitcoin meetups and being like, "Excuse me, have you heard about my son? Well, we need to free him," and coming to libertarian stuff. And look at what she's accomplished. I think that if nothing else, if you take nothing else away from all of this, understand the power that each and every one of us really has. And that power is to connect with other people and keep that connection going. And I got to be a witness to this so many times. It gives me the chills just thinking about it. She'd go and she'd give a speech at a conference, not knowing what to expect. And then all these people would come up to her and be like, "Wow, I see what you're doing. I support you. How can I help you?" People bought her coffees, took her to lunch, let her stay at their place. Were like, "Hey, I know this congressman, this person, this attorney. Let me introduce you." And just these connections, one at a time, over years, really got her to the place where she was before Trump, where she was able to be like, the Libertarian Party too, Angela McArdle, really cemented this, really made this happen, brought him to the convention and said, "We'll exchange, you can come to our conference and pitch our libertarians if you free our prisoner." And all of that was just this one person, so, and I think we all have either a mother, or we are a mother, or we would love to have a mother like Lynn. And it's just that mother connection, that amazing spark, and there's nothing that is stopping us. We too can use that. We too can do the same thing, and bring more freedom. Sorry to have gone off on
One
this
person
tangent,
can
but
know. That's great. One person can change the world. That's right.
She is.
It really
She's legitimately changing the world, and if nothing else, teaching us that it's possible. Because I didn't have any. People are always like, "Oh, I need to see a Latina or a Black woman or somebody in this position of power doing this thing." You know what? I had never seen a woman do something like this, go on this epic quest. I tell her all the time that she reminds me of like Frodo, like she had to make it to Mordor, and she did. And I had never seen a story told like this, especially not from a mom, from an elderly mom type of person. And so talk about representation. I want to grow up and be like Lynn.
There you go. Shout out to Lynn Ulbricht. Absolutely.
She's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure she's had more than her fair share of conferences and podcasts and so forth. But you know, she's welcome on this show anytime. But yeah, definitely now is not the right time. I think, you know, she's I'm sure she's plenty busy enough.
Oh boy, she needs some time off. I keep telling her that we just need to go away to like some beach in Fiji where like somebody brings us pina coladas and you know, that woman deserves a vacation of epic proportions is all I'm saying.
Yes. Well deserved. Absolutely. All right, on a different track, we've got to get in a bit of actual BCH specific news, this being the BCH podcast and all. So you were sort of onboarded a bit, right, to BCH by Callisti at the BTC conference, right? You tried Celine and stuff. He mentioned that to me. Do you have any just quick thoughts on that? What was that like?
It was
You're at the BTC conference and suddenly you're doing BCH.
It was great. It was super easy. I think, you know, like I keep saying, I'm not technical. So, you know, he was like, hey, you should try this. And I'm like, I'm not technical. And he's like, you don't have to be. And it was fantastic. Yeah. You know, I think that it's wonderful when you have something that is easy, so that somebody like me can use. And it's been great. I absolutely am thrilled.
All right, brilliant. Well, I just say that to roll into, this little segment here that we have of Bitcoin Cash, which has been so slandered and propagandized and so forth. You know, not everybody is like open-minded and, you know, to the point as you to get it with the ideology and everything like that. So we've been fighting for the last couple of years to just slowly break down all this propaganda. Hijacking Bitcoin has made that a ton easier because now there's just a simple book that you can say, bam, here it is. It's all authoritative from someone who knows what they're talking about. It's well cited, etc. But even until that had been published, it's just this endless quest really that the BCH community is on to break down that barrier of people who fell more on the BTC side to see things from a new perspective. And so we've charted it all on this show over the years to kind of show the effect that we've been having through sort of positive advocacy. And this is really starting to get to the point of like, you know, maybe those guys were right all along. It hasn't quite got to the point of, okay, we're on board and sign me up. But we're getting there, and the example this week is from Vlad Kostia and Paul Stortz on the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. Paul came on this show probably about 18 months ago at this point, and I said to him, mate, you've got to be paying attention to BCH. We've got cash tokens. We've got all this stuff coming out, and he had a lot of different arguments that were all sort of looking back into the past. Oh, it can't work because this, or the branding isn't good, or whatever, but things change, right? So Chet, just roll this clip quickly for us.
Okay, where's the compute? That's exactly right. This is what you need to see, is some kind of huge thing that for some reason the French are not going to get into computers in time. And this whole other civilization is going to be massively producing this computer thing, and the French are just going to sleep on that. So that's what they're saying because they have UTXO DeFi.
Yeah, I don't know. It was also funny when I interviewed John Carvalho alongside Eric Voskill. He was saying, you know, Omni, previously Mastercoin, is so beautiful and it works so well. Too bad the base layer doesn't scale to use it because it makes some of the Ethereum stuff pointless. And this is exactly what these Bitcoin Cash people are building.
So there you have it.
Okay,
He's talking about the fact that French was the idiom, what's it called? Not the idioma, the lingua franca of the world, and then it kind of got replaced largely in part because the internet was in English, right? So then that made a lot of people switch over, and the French didn't become, you know, the dominant player in the internet. So that really helped English to then become the standard, the world standard. So that's like BTC to BCH. Where is going to be that critical edge, that new jump that we can get ahead of them? And just to me, it's, you know, amazing to see. Again, I told Paul this stuff directly at least 18 months ago, mate, you got to pay attention, you got to look into this, and he kind of obviously didn't really get it at the time, but time passes, the ecosystem is growing, it's starting to work, and now he's thinking, maybe this is it. And then Vlad is talking about John Carvalho, also very famous for his dismissals of BCH, then starting to say what we need is the stuff that the BCH guys are currently building, right? So it's like, we're already at the finish line, guys. Like, just come and join us. Just drop all your copes and your reasons not to be involved and get involved. We don't have to do a big segment on this because we are sort of running out of time, but quickly, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this change of branding and how BCH is being seen more positively over time.
Yeah, I mean, imagine knowing what you know now, being able to do it all over again. And that to me is what BCH is. It's like, hey, wait a minute. You do remember where Bitcoin was back then, right? Like, you're in on the ground floor. And this time it actually works. I mean, at least I think it works much better. We're not looking to become the, store of value. We want actual solutions. So knowing what you know now, why wouldn't you come over and do both? Like, why do you have to pick one or the other? You can do both. There's no, I think that the maxi terminology, like you have to be only Bitcoin, is ridiculous, and that doesn't help anyone. So, hey, you can do a little bit of both, or all of the above, like the government is doing. But more importantly, his shirt is freaking fantastic. I don't know if I was the one that gave him that shirt, but if he got it at the Bitcoin conference, it's a high probability that I was. So, yeah. Leave it to the woman to comment on his clothing. The Free Ross Day One shirt.
No, you're right. It all ties together, you see. It's always funny, these things that we're doing, you just see the ripple impact out there in the world. You never know. You never know who you're reaching with your message. That's it. Yeah, Vlad, absolutely. Props to him. He was on the right side of the Ross issue, if not the right Bitcoin fork just yet. But he'll get there.
Just yet. But again, I mean, like,
exactly.
I don't understand the argument. It's like, you imagine being able to buy Bitcoin today at, what is it now, $400? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Why would you? Like, why wouldn't you? And is the rift that big that you're unwilling to have both?
Be a bit involved. Yeah, exactly.
Get involved.
Yeah.
But what's the issue? Where's the holdup?
Yeah. I love it.
I don't understand. I'm like, okay, there's another Bitcoin that may work better. I don't know. You can have one for, you don't use your gold every day. You use your dollars, right? So why are you trying to use Bitcoin for your gold for your everyday transactions? You can have both. You don't have to pick. Yeah. It's a false dichotomy. Simple. You don't have to pick. You can have both.
That's simple. That's simple. Exactly. Okay. All right. We got our last little segment here. I got to give a quick shout out to Bliss. We don't really have time for me to give you a huge pitch about that, but hopefully maybe after this show I can try and convince you to come along. I don't know, you might already have a ticket, but I would guess not. This is our conference that we're having 13th to 15th of May, so it's in a little more than 2 months in Slovenia, and there's going to be a ton of people there. It's where the upgrade goes live for Bitcoin Cash, the yearly upgrade, and we're going to have talks and all this stuff. We ran it last year, we're running it again this year. So this is just my quick shill to the audience. Head to bliss.cash and buy your ticket on TapSwap. Tickets are NFTs. You can only buy them on chain using BCH. There's no fiat involved at any point. You can book your tickets, you can book your flights, you can book the hotel, everything, all in BCH. So if you want to come have a cryptocurrency holiday, that is the place to do it. And I'll show you more on that privately later. But in the meantime, we have our final segment, message to the community. It's your chance to just, I set the agenda. I picked all the topics. Your chance to put some message that you think the Bitcoin Cash community needs to hear, whatever story or opinion or advice or anything you've got to give that we haven't kind of covered already.
Oh, wow.
Go for it.
I think we've covered pretty much the gamut of everything. Yeah, that's kind of on the spot. Has there been a message that I haven't covered today? I think, the freedom angle is really the why for all of this. And so I just keep coming back to it. What we're looking for is a way to minimize the government on each and every one of us. And whatever that solution is, whatever brings us closer to it, is what I'm here for. And so to me, Bitcoin Cash is what Bitcoin was in its original iteration, when the Silk Road was live, when, it's that thing that we want, that the government doesn't have control over, the thing that we can get around all of that control. So, clearly people listening to all the way to the end of the show are already sold on it, so I don't have to do it for them. But, it's there's something so amazing about having a community of people that believes in what you believe in, that are here for the same things. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who is freedom oriented and who is creating all of these wonderful things so that people like me have something to look forward to. And thanks to everyone. This has been an amazing experience, not just being on this podcast, but being part of this community, and for embracing me. Because again, I'm not the technical side of this. And when I first started coming to Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash things and Monero things, it's like, what am I doing here? And I think that it's so amazing that we have this overlap of people who want to be free and who have the technology to provide tools for freedom. And so more of that, please.
Yeah, no, it takes everyone, everyone has their different skills. Some people are there, giving the friendly face, and some people are building the technology. We can't get there without everyone being involved. So yeah, it's great to have you in the BCH community and the cryptocurrency and the freedom movement, all of it, just all of it. It's great to have you on team humanity.
Exactly, team humanity. This is exactly it. What's going to get us saved,
It's us. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. One person at a time. High agency. Okay. Shout out to our FundMe contributors, Majumali Marcelo, founding father, Molecular, the show we love, Erdogan Talk, economics writer, Milton Friedman, at Cash Stamps, Keep Calm and Bitcoin Cash, and Emergent Reasons. Please experiment with new ways to get you, Callisti Finish, in front of some serious media spotlights. Thank you to our donators, our patrons, Ricky and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Start guide, FAQ, and links are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Try Selene Wallet at Selene.cash. Shout outs for the show. Final sign off. Where can people find more of you, Martha?
You can find me on X. It's my favorite platform, but I'm on X and IG at Bueno for Miami. It's my last name. You see it above me. Bueno for Miami. It's my handle's stuck around since I ran for office in 2022, and I haven't gotten around to changing it. So I think it's just going to stay.
No, it's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
why
repping
not?
Miami. Great city. I've never been, but it's on my to-do list. I'm gonna have to come check it out.
We were, for like a brief second, we were like the crypto sort of new
But where it
emerging
was all
capital
gone.
for like 2.5 seconds. It's already gone away, but
True. Didn't last. Jet, any shout outs from your end?
Yeah, just
sorry.
Oh, Andrew, go on, Martha.
No, go ahead.
okay. This one is to my lovely girlfriend Alex. We had a fantastic weekend away, and happy early birthday.
Aw.
Happy birthday. Perfect.
Happy birthday. That's so sweet.
Do you have one more shout out there, Martha? You're going to jump in with?
No.
Okay, all right. The moment has passed. And my shout out goes firstly to Lynn Ulbricht, because that is just an incredible story. And as I often say on this podcast, it's just about persistence and just the relentless nature, like David Goggins says, nothing wants to stand in front of anyone or anything that is relentless. And that's just sort of the attitude that I feel the BCH community needs to have, and that's the same thing she has, that just nothing can stop her, clearly. Literally nothing. And if you stick at it long enough and you just keep powering through, solving one problem at a time, building more support and traction and momentum, eventually the universe breaks. You break or the universe does, and that's completely within your control, whether it's you or the universe. So very inspiring
They did try to break
story.
her. They did try to break her, and she persisted. So, it's a beautiful
Amazing.
story. I think that was, I thought I had already done it before, but yes, thank you. Lynn is my shout out. She is what I think everybody would want as a mom. And so to see her out in the world and accomplishing it is, I couldn't live in a world where she didn't get what she wanted ultimately, and she did. So yay.
Incredible. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you all for listening, and until next time.
Tomorrow all the bags were gone. Fees a dream I pay. I thank BCH for breaking through to show a better way. I send my funds across the globe to anyone in need. It's fast, it's fair, it's always there. A tool for every creed. And I'm proud to use BCH today, where freedom lights the way. That's secure and built to last, the strongest every day. From the seas to the farmlands, to the mountains capped with snow. Bitcoin Cash.